Chapter 12. The Moon, Earth's Companion. In this lesson, surface of the Moon, atmospheric conditions on the Moon, phases of the Moon, eclipses, expeditions to the Moon, artificial satellites, Moon and tides. We have already learnt about the Earth and its neighbors in the previous class. In this chapter, we shall study the Moon in some detail. The Moon is the only natural satellite of the Earth. It is the Earth's closest neighbor. It goes around the Earth in the same way as the Earth goes around the Sun. A satellite is a natural or man-made object which revolves around a planet. It does not have its own light. The Moon shines due to the reflected light of the Sun. It is one of the brightest objects in the sky after the Sun. The distance of the Moon from the Earth is 3,84,400 kilometers. It is much smaller than the Earth. Surface of the Moon. The surface of the Moon is rough and uneven. It is covered with a layer of dust, mountains, valleys, lava fields, and craters. Craters are deep holes formed when meteorites, rocks from outer space, hit against the surface of the Moon. The lava present in the core flew out from these craters. This resulted in the formation of rocks, plains, etc. All this happened billions of years ago. Astronauts brought back rocks from the Moon which tell us that the surface of the Moon is covered with grey dust. The Moon is about 4.51 billion years old, the same age as the Earth. Atmospheric conditions on the Moon. The Moon has no air, water, wind and weather. Therefore, no life exists on it. Since there is no atmosphere on the Moon, the side facing the Sun is extremely hot, and the side away from it is extremely cold. In the absence of atmosphere, heat of the Sun is not absorbed, and at night all the heat escapes out. The Moon's gravity is only 1/6 as strong as the Earth's gravity. In absence of air, no sound can be heard on the Moon. Phases of the Moon. The Moon seems to change its shape daily as seen from the Earth. It is lit up by the reflected light of the Sun. As the Moon revolves around the Earth, the shape of the lit portion also changes. The shape varies from a crescent to a full moon. The changing shape of the lit portion of the Moon is called a phase. The different phases of the Moon are: New Moon. At times, we do not see the Moon at all because the lighted side of the Moon is away from the Earth. This is called the new Moon. Crescent Moon. When only a small portion of the Moon facing the Earth gets sunlight and becomes visible to us, it is called Crescent Moon. Half Moon. When half the Moon is seen, it is called Half Moon. Gibbous Moon. When 3/4 of the Moon is seen, it is called Gibbous Moon. Full Moon. When the entire Moon is seen, it is called Full Moon. These stages together are known as the waxing phase of the Moon, increasing size of the Moon. After this, the cycle reverses and after full moon appears gibbous moon, then a half moon, then a crescent moon and finally a new moon. These stages are called the waning phase of the Moon. Eclipses. An eclipse is a partial or total blocking of the light of the Sun either by the Earth or the Moon. It is nothing but shadows of the Earth and the Moon. An eclipse occurs when Sun, Earth and Moon are in a straight line. At times, the heavenly body in the center casts a shadow, which partially or wholly hides the other object from the Sun. Eclipses are of two types: solar eclipse and lunar eclipse. Solar eclipse. Solar eclipse occurs when the Moon comes in between the Earth and the Sun, and blocks the sunlight from reaching the Earth, and casts its shadow on the Earth. A solar eclipse takes place only on a new moon day, when the Moon hides the Sun completely. It is a total solar eclipse. When it hides the Sun partially, it is a partial solar eclipse. Solar eclipse lasts for a very short time, a few minutes only. It is dangerous to view solar eclipse with naked eyes. It can damage the retina of the eyes. Lunar eclipse. When the Earth comes between the Sun and the Moon, it blocks the sunlight from reaching the Moon and creates a shadow on it. This is a lunar eclipse. When the shadow of the Earth completely covers the Moon, a total lunar eclipse occurs. When the Moon is covered partially, a partial lunar eclipse occurs. Lunar eclipse can last for a long duration. It can be watched safely with the naked eye. Lunar eclipse occurs when there is full moon. Expeditions to the Moon. The first human to step on the moon was Neil Armstrong on 20th July 1969. He was accompanied by Edwin Aldrin and Michael Collins. The three American astronauts went to the moon by a spacecraft called Apollo 11. Michael Collins circled the moon and stayed back in the spacecraft. This mission was the first successful manned mission to the moon. After this, many spacecrafts have visited the moon and gathered a lot of information about it. Artificial satellites. Artificial satellites are man-made objects launched by scientists into space which continuously orbit around the Earth or any other heavenly body. The space age began when the first artificial satellite Sputnik 1 was launched by the Soviet Union in 1957. Since then many satellites have been launched by various countries. The first artificial satellite launched by India was Aryabhata in 1975. Thereafter, India launched Bhaskara 1, Bhaskara 11 Rohini, Apple, INSAT 1A, INSAT 1B, INSAT 2C, INSAT 3A, INSAT 3B, INSAT 3C and INSAT 3E. In April 2008, India launched Cartosat 2A, a remote sensing satellite into space. Artificial satellites are launched into space with the help of rockets. Uses of artificial satellites. Weather satellites help to forecast weather. They give warnings about impending storms, cyclones, floods, etc. Space satellites help to study heavenly bodies. Communication satellites help in telephonic communications. They receive and transmit radio signals, help in the live telecast of TV programs. Navigation satellites help aircraft, ship, etc. to determine their location. Astronomers use satellites to take measurements of our galaxy, solar system and stars. Remote sensing satellites record such geographical events like movement of glaciers, forest fires, forest cover, etc. Space travel. Space travelers like Rakesh Sharma, Kalpana Chawla and Sunita Williams are an inspiration to young people who want to go into space. Astronauts train hard to learn about space and to adapt themselves to the conditions in space. The Mission Control on Earth sends spacecrafts with astronauts into space by means of rockets. In space stations, there are separate modules to work and to live. The spacesuits astronauts wear create a small atmosphere around them, for there is no air in space. Astronauts do different tasks in space. Some carry out experiments, some work inside the shuttle, some do repair work outside the spacecraft, some even repair satellites. The space shuttle carries the astronauts back to Earth after the completion of their mission. The space shuttles can be used again and again, while the rockets can only be used once. Moon and tides. The gravitational pull of the sun and the moon exerts a pull on the Earth's water bodies, and causes tides in the sea. The moon, being closer to the Earth than the sun, has a greater influence on the water bodies. There occurs a high tide after about every the seawater on the side of the Earth facing the moon is pulled upwards, creating bulges in the ocean on both sides. The sea level rises. High tides are also called spring tides. Low tides or neap tides occur between two high tides. The rotation of the Earth causes two low tides every day. The intensity of tides varies with phases of the moon. The high tide is maximum at the time of a new moon and a full moon.